Back in 2007 or 2008, I used to work at a place called Walmart. Yes, that's the place where certain toys, movies, clothes, and other things were sold there. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of a Fisher Price series called Planet Heroes? If you don't know what it is, let me fill you in on that. Planet Heroes is about 9 planet superheroes that save the solar system from Professor Darkness, aka Black Hole. But unfortunately, the show only had 3 episodes. Sadly, the toys were discontinued back in late of 2009. But before that happened, I used to buy the toys for my son, who was 6 or 7 at the time. When Planet Heroes came out, I started to buy the toys for my son, and he was so happy when I gave him the toys for him for Christmas, on his birthday, or whenever I had the money to spoil him. Of course, there were times where I bought the hero that he already has, having me to exchange it for the one he doesn't have. But that was rare to happen, and he was into the show as well. We have watched all 3 episodes of the show, and the only episode that he never saw was the one I saw before him. Now let me start off by saying this. I was working at Walmart as I did for work, ever since my son Ryan's father and I separated before he was born. I was living in a small 2-bedroom apartment at the time, and the money situation was tight, so I have to work 2 jobs to keep the apartment. Most days, I work as an accountant at an office building, and other days I work at Walmart, though I do have help from my parents who babysit Ryan when he wasn't at school and I was at work. Other times when Ryan was home, my parents would babysit him, although sometimes my sister would pitch in every now and then, but otherwise, I got him a babysitter. If you're wondering about the 4th episode of Planet Heroes I saw, I'll be getting into that now. It all started when I was working at Walmart, usually stocking shelves and even helping the customers when needed. I then ran into another worker at Walmart. As I ran into this worker at the toys aisle, he walked up to me from the other side of the aisle. "Hey there, I didn't know you work at Walmart too," the worker of Walmart said, chuckling as he thought I was a customer. "I have bad eyesight without contacts, so I didn't know if you were a customer or not." "Well, it's okay. So, Jason, what are you doing here in the toys aisle?" I asked him, seeing the name tag saying Jason on it. "Just putting some Planet Hero toy that I found in the auto parts section." "What brings you here?" Jason asked me. "I'm here looking for a Planet Hero for my son. He's looking for one of them that he doesn't have," I replied. "I think it's the Lunar that he's looking for." "Well, that's the toy I found, so you can keep it aside until after your shift ends when you can pay for the toy," Jason suggested, as I nodded. Jason looked up at me when he handed me the toy. "So your son likes Planet Heroes?" "Yes, he does, ever since he saw ads for the show and toys on TV," I said. "We have seen at least all 3 of the episodes, but my son was disappointed that they never released episode 4 of the show." "Well," Jason began, scratching the back of his head, "my nephew is 6, and he's just got interested in the show, and I have a feeling that he liked the show as much as your son does. So with that being the case, I started to buy the toys for him as well." "Wow, that's awesome, Jason. So what made you work at Walmart?" I asked. Jason was silent for a moment before he spoke up. "I was just decided to work here, because why not?" Jason replied, feeling that something wasn't right at first. I brushed it off, mainly because I wanted to give this job a shot. "Well, that's nice, Jason. I've been working here and as an accountant at an office building. I had to work 2 jobs to keep my 2-bedroom apartment. Ever since my boyfriend and I separated, I was pregnant and needed somewhere to stay for the time." I explained more to Jason on why my situation was tough, but I managed to pull through. "Before you get back to work, there's something I need to tell you," Jason said, handing me a piece of paper, and it was folded. "What's this?" I asked Jason. Right before he was leaving, he turned to me and whispered something to me. In that piece of paper we'll have the link for you to see the 4th episode of Planet Heroes. Check out the link and watch it. If you do see it, let me know, Jason replied, before heading off. I put the piece of paper in my back pocket of my uniform for Walmart. And I was slightly confused. Why was Jason sounding so stressed out? Like, he was calm on the outside, but he seemed stressed on the inside. I know that feeling as I'm facing my own problems, so I didn't let that feeling bug me so much. When I got home from work, Ryan was giving me a hug when I walked in my apartment. My mom said that Ryan was good while I was gone, so there weren't any problems. I didn't really bother about the piece of paper Jason gave me until much later. The next day, Ryan had gone to school, and I had my day off from my 2 jobs, so it was great to have some time off from work. After Ryan got in the school bus and headed to school, I took out the piece of paper that Jason gave me from my drawer. I opened up the piece of paper, and there was a link written on it. I read the link carefully, and I noticed that it was for a video site. The video site was on the link, was linking to Veo. Now, Veo is different compared to YouTube, and there were a lot of reasons why certain video sites are different. I went over to my desktop computer with Windows 2008 installed. I went to my Internet Explorer, and yes, this was before I used Google Chrome, so it was no big surprise. I went on my browser and typed in the link that the piece of paper said, and it took me to a video on Veo. I've never been on Veo before, so I knew it was very new, despite the fact that YouTube was a few years old at the time. There was no wonder why this link didn't lead me to YouTube, most likely due to copyright, or some shit like that. The link took me to a video, and I have never expected it to see something odd. For one thing, the user's name was Superman87, which I have no idea who that is, and the thumbnail of the video had 2 red eyes, and that quickly was freaky. I wasn't too fond of the red eyes, as I've seen them in horror movies. I know, cliche in my book, but whatever. I looked at the title of the episode, and it was a Planet Heroes episode. It was titled Planet Heroes Episode 4, Transformation. Now, I have never heard of that episode before, and does this episode exist? I was confused at this point, as I didn't know that Planet Heroes even had an episode 4. I decided to look at the views of the video. Surprisingly, it had 100 views. Then I decided to check to see if the video had any comments, but there were none of them being shown. Now, I wasn't crazy about that either, so I decided to press play on the video. Maybe if this episode was good, maybe I would show this to my son, who would have loved it. The episode started off with the theme song. All was normal and nothing was odd, but after the theme song ended, the screen faded to black with the title of the episode. The episode Transformation was there, and then something caught my eye. I paused to have a look at the writer of the episode. It was saying that the episode was written by Jason Farley. Jason Farley? Who's that? I asked myself, and I was confused at this point. But I assumed that it might have been maybe a new writer of the episode or something like that. So I pressed play to view more of the episode. The episode starts off with Tiny the asteroid, along with Photon and Neutron, mainly just goofing around like idiots. They were the main villain Black Hole, aka Professor Darkness. They were planning on destroying the solar system, as they normally did in these episodes. The next scene transitions to Venus, the planet where one of the Planet Heroes lives. Dazzle woke up feeling tired, as she looked like she had a hangover, and walked over to her mirror in her bedroom. But she screamed with fright in her voice. She had 2 deer antlers sticking out of her head. Now I was confused. Why did Dazzle have deer antlers? I wasn't sure what was going on, so I decided to watch to find out. Dazzle did try to push the antlers back in her head, only to appear back out. After trying so hard to push them back in, she had to wear a hat over her head. Then the scene transitions to Yuri and Dazzle in the Solar Quarter's office, and this is when things started to get interesting. I think something's wrong with me, I think it's a mutation of something. And Dazzle was then cut off when Yuri looked at his friend. I don't understand, Dazzle. What are you talking about? Yuri asked. Dazzle was hesitated to say, but she had to think of something. I must warn you, Yuri. What you might see may disturb you, Dazzle replied. She hesitantly removed the hat, and her deer antlers appear on her head. But Yuri had a blank expression. He wasn't shocked or anything. It's probably those bumps on your head swelling from your last mission, I suppose, Yuri said, shrugging the deer antlers off as nothing. Oh, thank goodness. I didn't think it was that bad, Dazzle said, then quickly put the hat back on, just as Ace entered the room. The next scene shows that it's been the first day of something strange happening, and it stated that it was 1 day later. The next day, Dazzle had fur surrounding her neck, and this was starting to get strange. Since Dazzle had fur around her neck, similar to that of a lion's mane, but I decided not to let the bad feeling get to me. I continued to watch the episode. With Dazzle having fur around her neck, she had to wear a scarf to hide it from everyone. The next scene stated it was the next day. Dazzle's hands were turned into claws, and that was very freaky, as the claws reminded me of those freaky monsters with long fingernails. Dazzle nearly screamed that she had to wear gloves to hide her hands, which it made her hard for her to do tasks with. Now at this point I was wondering, what was this episode portraying? Like, there was no description about the episode, so it was useless beyond this point. The next scene shows Dazzle in her home. She craves spicy foods that she can handle the heat very well. She starts drinking hot sauce straight out of the bottle, not feeling any pain from the heat of the hot sauce. But things started to get freaky by the next scene, and it shows Dazzle in her solar quarters. She was in the bathroom by herself, while looking at the mirror. She was having more mutations. She had sharp teeth that were like from a vampire. She grew a few inches taller than usual. Her feet were changed into goat-like, and she was shocked. Dazzle was confused. She had no idea what was happening to her. She just wished that it was just a dream, so that way she could wake up from this nightmare. But as she turned around to look down, she realized that she had a bony-like tail. Very confused as to what was going on, I honestly have no idea what was happening. Was Dazzle turning into some freaky monster? I was debating on if I should show this to my son or not, so I kept watching. I must never let any of my friends see me like this, or they'll think I'm some horrible monster, Dazzle said softly, scared at the same time. Suddenly, the alarm went off, and Dazzle heard someone coming towards the bathroom, and then a few knocks were heard. Dazzle, emergency! We need your help, Ace said, while knocking at the same time. I'll be there in a bit, Ace. I just gotta do something, Dazzle replied. The next scene shows all 8 of the Planet Heroes, including Commander Sun, Lunar, and Starshooter, all facing tiny black hole, photon, and neutron near the entrance of solar quarters. What do you want this time? Ace growled at Black Hole at his minions. We want what we always want. Get rid of you pesky Planet Heroes, Black Hole replied. His minions then started to attack the Planet Heroes. The fight scene lasted for about 2 minutes, until Dazzle appeared. She was in what seemed to be in a snowsuit with a scarf, boots, gloves, and a hat on. Dazzle, good thing you're here, Zip said, seeing that his friend had shown up. But why are you in a snowsuit? It's not gonna snow here in space, Toon added, but Dazzle remained quiet. The fight scene continued until one of Photon and Neutron's powers blasted at Dazzle, removing all of her cover-ups. As Dazzle groaned as she sat up, her mutations were exposed to everyone. Gasping as she was embarrassed and shocked, Black Hole along with his minions stared at Dazzle. What the hell is that thing? Neutron asked as he flew off. That's a freak! Run! Photon screamed as he flew off as well. Well then, we'll be back some other time, Black Hole replied, before opening up a portal to leave. I would get her looked at, because seriously, she's the freakiest thing I've ever seen. As Black Hole grabbed Tiny the asteroid, They both disappeared. The planet heroes turned to Dazzle, who was now so ashamed for her mutations being exposed to those around her. Arrgh! Dazzle groaned in frustration, fear and humiliation for what has happened. She was called a freak, and it hurt her feelings. What happened to her? Digger asked. I've never encountered anything like that, Rings added. Is she sick? Lunar asked. Dazzle was stepping away from her friends. Dazzle, what happened to... Ace was about to ask his question, but Dazzle didn't want Ace to come closer. I'm sorry. I can't be seen like this. Dazzle cried as she ran off the solar quarters and into space. Dazzle, wait! Ace called. But it was too late. Dazzle disappeared. So far this episode was good, but I was confused as to why Dazzle was having these mutations. But I decided to ask questions later, as I wanted to see what happens next. The next scene fades to Dazzle in space. She was in tears while she looked back at solar quarters in the distance. I'm truly a freak. A monster as well, Dazzle sobbed as she ventured through the galaxy. We see Dazzle wandering from planet to planet, hoping that one of the heroes from other planets would accept the way she is, only to be rejected by running away from her, or even go as far as calling her a monster or freak. So Dazzle wandered through the deepest and darkest part of the galaxy. But she wasn't alone, however. I noticed a deer-like creature following her, but I couldn't see what it was. It was due to the fact that the character was all black, and I couldn't see any features on what the figure was either. The next scene cuts to Planet Heroes aboarding the space shuttle. They were going to search for Dazzle. Sun Commander explained that he found a piece of fur on the ground, and it was from the lion mane around Dazzle's neck. He did explain that Lunar did some research, and they found out something that I could barely understand what he was saying. It was probably because the audio was a bit shitty for a bit. But what I could make out was that Dazzle was going through something. That I believe was some sort of puberty that happens to her. I have a feeling since Dazzle was mostly human, this is what's similar to what Starfire went through in Teen Titans. So far the episode was interesting for what it is, but I wasn't sure if my son would like this episode or not. I was quite hesitant to share it with him. Why are we even going for the deepest part of space? Gustus asked, until his radio went haywire and started talking like a news reporter. I'm not sure if this is a good idea, Ace, Commander Sun said. We have to do this. It's the only way, Ace explained, answering his friend's questions. We gotta find Dazzle. I know she's in space somewhere. The space shuttle then started to travel through the galaxy. The planet heroes began to search through the galaxy for Dazzle, but so far they had no luck. The next scene shows Dazzle in a planet that she's never been through before. It was a planet that she had no idea what it was called. But from the Defier designs of the planet she's in, it looked like a wasteland, similar to that in the Fallout games. When the nuclear bomb destroyed the areas, it looked similar, but with some fire burning on some trees as lanterns. Now I was starting to get a bit weirded out by this. This episode was more of a PG episode, so it didn't bother me that much. Suddenly, a wolf was slowly sneaking behind Dazzle, making her turn around to see nothing. Hello? Is anyone here? Dazzle called, seeing that no one was around, but she felt that she was being followed. When Dazzle looked behind some bushes, she realized that she wasn't alone. I'm guessing that no one wants me here? Dazzle sounded confused and worried at this point, so I was starting to get a bit of goosebumps. When Dazzle turned around, she could see that the wolf was following her. His body was charred from the flames by the looks of it, and there was even little to no fur on him. He was snarling and even foaming at the mouth. This made Dazzle feel anxious. When the wolf charged at Dazzle, she tried to use her fire powers against the creature, but the wolf dodged the fire blasts, thus having Dazzle running away from the wolf. As she was running, she ended up tripping over her feet. This was due to her not being used to running on goat legs. When Dazzle was on the ground, the wolf jumped to attack the planet hero, only to be held back by Dazzle's strength. Struggling to keep the wolf from biting her, Her claws dug deep into the wolf's skin, causing it to whelp in pain. Dazzle pushed the wolf off of her. As the wolf was being thrown off, he stumbled down to a bush of thorns, thus having the wolf to get hurt and limp away, thus having Dazzle to see the wolf disappearing. The next scene transitions to Dazzle sitting near a pond. She was looking down at her reflection. The water was more like if it was contaminated, like if the water was rust-looking. From the corner of my eye, I noticed a deer-like creature behind the bushes, watching Dazzle. So I had to pause to get a good look at what it was. He did have red eyes from the thumbnail on the video. Well, then I got to see that the head was a deer-like skull. It had a skinny body with long claws and goat hind legs and a bony tail. It was spying on Dazzle, which it wasn't surprising, seeing that it was following her since she left Solar Quarters. Dazzle was looking down at her reflection, and another mutation appeared. This time it was her eyes going from human to snake-like eyes. "Oh, what is happening to me?" Dazzle sighed, feeling depressed as she was feeling more ashamed than he was ever happening to her. "Something wonderful," said a male voice. Dazzle turned around to see that it was a man. He looked like he was 19 or older. He was medium build. He started to walk over to the distressed heroine. He also had green eyes, dark blonde hair, and he was sounding friendly. "Please, I cannot be seen looking like a freak," Dazzle replied. But the strange man didn't seem to be scared or anything. He did have a lion-like mane around his neck, and didn't even look like he was going to hurt Dazzle. What was so bad about him? Maybe he was going for the same thing Dazzle is? I wasn't sure, so I was bound to find out. "Fear not, sweetie. There's nothing for me to fear about you," the strange man said. He held out his hand for Dazzle. "Come, my dear. I'll make it clear for you shortly when we get somewhere safe." Dazzle then followed the strange man somewhere on the strange planet, although she wasn't sure what was going to happen next. The next scene shows Planet Heroes in their space shuttle. They were traveling from planet to planet. They were on their search for Dazzle, but had no luck finding her so far, so they continued to go to the deepest and darkest parts of the galaxy. Then the scene cuts back to the strange man and Dazzle. The two were somewhere safer in the wasteland beyond. The scene was more like a grassland area where it felt like heaven, but to Dazzle, it felt like almost home, but it was much safer. "You're changing. Do you know why?" the strange man asked. "Is it because I'm getting older? I did grow a few inches taller, and my body's slowly growing still," Dazzle replied. Then she sat down near a mossy rock. "Not exactly. You're experiencing transformation," the strange man told her. "A perfectly normal part of the life cycle. Where you come from, my dear, is Venus. You are mostly human, but a bit of alien in you. People around you don't seem to see it." "I don't understand, though," Dazzle replied. "When my brother had this transformation, he turned blue for 2 days. Why have I—" Dazzle was about to explain more until the strange man cut her off. "Transformation is different for everyone in Venus, and you, my dear, are one of the rarest ones," the man said. "The rarest ones you are, so transform you into stone." As he said that, Dazzle looked up to see herself slowly turning to stone. Her body was so stiff that she could barely move. She then began to whimper. But however, the strange man wasn't helping her. He just stood still. "Relax, sweetheart. It'll all be over soon." "How do you know these things?" Dazzle asked. The only parts not covered in stone were her head and shoulders. "I know them, my dear, because what you're about to see is I'm a space Wendigo." The strange man's voice turned into a monster deep voice. Dazzle was stunned to hear what the strange man said. She watched as this strange man and transforming into a monster. Although we do see it happening, but the only thing we saw was that the strange man was all in black. I couldn't see the features on the man. Now this was the episode got really messed up. The creature was standing in front of Dazzle. It was a space Wendigo, It let out a loud shriek as Dazzle screamed in terror. The next scene then fades to the space shuttle. The planet heroes were still searching for their friend in trouble, and they just got out of the planet. "So, we know she's not in there," Rings said, seeing that they didn't find Dazzle in one of the planets that they were searching for her. "Whatever Dazzle is, I just hope she's alright," Ace replied. When then the scene cuts to Dazzle turning to stone, but the Wendigo was walking around her. Dazzle could see that her shoulders were turning to stone, and it wouldn't be long until Dazzle was turned into stone. "Wonderful," the space Wendigo said, chuckling to himself. "Soon you'll be turned to stone fully, and you'll be at the end of your life." The space Wendigo then faced the planet heroine, licking his teeth as he did so. "In the meantime, please scream as you wish. It gets me more interested." "I have no reason to scream. I could care less about my home or friends," Dazzle replied as a tear ran down her cheek. "I'm a freak. That's what I am." "I don't think you're a freak at all. I don't see that being the case," the space Wendigo said, as his bony tail surrounded the stone figure. Just as he said that, Dazzle was fully turned into stone, thus having the space Wendigo laugh evilly. "In fact, I'm going to enjoy seeing you suffer." The space Wendigo was about to chomp on the stone, but was interrupted by Ace. "Dazzle!" Ace shouted. Zip used his laser gun to blast some lasers at the space Wendigo. As the Wendigo turned around, he could see that there were planet heroes. As the fight scene started, Sun Commander and Starshooter and Lunar joined in, thus having a few of the planet heroes rush towards Dazzle. She was turned to stone. "Where's Dazzle?" Ace asked. "In here," a muffled voice said. It was Dazzle, but she was in stone. "She's turned into stone," Yuri said. He and Digger and Zip and Ace were trying to figure out how to free their friend. But before they could do so, the space Wendigo pushed them all away from their friend covered in stone. "Your friend belongs to me now. You can have her back once I'm finished with her," the space Wendigo said. Then Rings shot at him with his rings, pissing off the Wendigo. "You just don't know when to quit or give up, eh?" The space Wendigo then started to attack again. This time the fight was getting more interesting. Now at this point I was kind of worried about Planet Heroes, as the space Wendigo character was someone I've never heard before, nor did I recognize the voice. But showing this to my son, it might scare him due to the appearance of the space Wendigo character. As the fight lasted for about 2 minutes, the space Wendigo was about to have a bite of one when lured to his trap, but before he could do so, he was then hit by one of Shiver's snowballs. As he was distracted, Ace ran up to his friend, which a coating of stone had formed into a stone ball. "Dazzle?" Ace asked. "Dazzle, can you hear me?" Ace then turned to see Digger tossing a hammer to Ace. "Free her, Ace. We'll handle this beast," Digger said, as a space Wendigo started to attack the fourth planet hero. Ace then hammered on the stone ball. He was going to free his friend. "Dazzle, I'm getting you out of there." "No! Go away, Ace. You don't want to see me as a freak," Dazzle cried, thus having Ace to pull out a mirror from his spacesuit pocket. "Don't be silly, Dazzle. I'm your friend," Ace began, seeing that Dazzle was back the way she was, without the mutations she had before. "Besides, you're just the way you are." As Dazzle emerged from the stone ball, she looked at the mirror. She was back the way she was, and she was happy to be herself again. "I'm normal," Dazzle said, happily, but then some fire shot out of her mouth. "Mostly." Dazzle can see that the space Wendigo was getting away, so the heroine followed after the Wendigo. After being on a wild goose chase, Dazzle then continued and cornered the Wendigo near the edge. Now down below was a river of rust water. The space Wendigo knew he was busted, and he had nowhere to hide or get away. I could see the space Wendigo was holding one of the planet heroes. I noticed that it was Rings. The space Wendigo was about to have a chomp at Rings, and that's when Dazzle stood in front of him. Devour this! Dazzle raged, shooting her fiery breath at the Space Wendigo. The Space Wendigo groaned in pain by the fire, and he let Rings go. He ran off to be back with the other planet heroes. No one tries to hurt my friends and gets away with it, Dazzle growled, thus spitting out the flames and landing on the ground. The Space Wendigo was trapped, and he had nowhere to go. What are you gonna do? You wouldn't! The Space Wendigo slipped on the edge, hanging on for his dear life, looking at the enraged planet hero. Kill you? Ha! Why would I? This is your fault, Dazzle said. She then shot her fire powers at the Wendigo, knocking him off the edge and plunging down to the rusted water below. And the Space Wendigo slowly drowned in the water, but we don't see the Wendigo drowning, thankfully. The next scene then cuts to Dazzle with the rest of the planet heroes. They were all glad that their friends were safe. Man, when do you have the ability to have fire coming out of your mouth? Gustus asked. Just now? Please don't call me a freak. I'm almost normal, Dazzle replied. Ace then placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. You're just as you should be. No matter what changes on the outside, you'll always be Dazzle on the inside. Ace reassured Dazzle as she turned to her friends, who nodded, making the girl smile. So the episode ends with the planet heroes returning to the solar quarters, and this scene was faded to black. The theme song along with the end credits rolled. I was stunned after watching this episode, not because the episode was messed up and dark, but the Wendigo was an interesting character in the episode. I did a look on the credits to see who voiced the Space Wendigo. As I looked, the planet heroes had their original voice actors and actress for the episode, but the strange man and the Space Wendigo voices were played by the same person. The person who voiced the strange man and Wendigo was an actor by Maxon McKnight. Now that's a name I've never heard of, but after the video ended, I decided to do some research on the episode. As I looked up the episode, there were no information about it, just the first 3 episodes of Planet Heroes. I was then wondering about this Jason Farley writer. Who was he? I decided to not bother with the episode and just thought I'd tell Jason the next time I see him at Walmart. I looked up at the timestamp of the episode I watched, and it was longer than the other 3 Planet Heroes episodes that I have watched. The timestamp of episode was 30 minutes and 16 seconds. So the episode was a bit longer than the other episodes I've watched. With that being said, I didn't bother to tell my son about the episode, fearing that he would be traumatized, mainly because of the Wendigo being in the episode. But I was confused as to what the episode was portraying. I had a feeling that the episode was an inspiration of an episode of Teen Titans, where Starfire was going through puberty. So that must be where the episode was coming from, but that remains to be a mystery. A few days later, I was working at Walmart as usual, and that when I was trying to figure out where Jason was, I haven't seen him at Walmart one day, so I thought that he might have had a day off from work or something. So I brushed it off as that. However, days turned into weeks and then months, and as early 2009 came, I was then asked to see my manager at his office after work. So I went to his office to see him. When I got to his office, he said that I'm going to have my hours extended to 6 hours instead of 4 on the days I worked. Mainly because a few employees were fired or quit their jobs. So I asked the manager if Jason was one of them. Surprisingly, my manager said that Jason left a while ago, like sometime in 2008, when he left Walmart due to peer pressure from his family. I asked my manager why Jason was getting peer pressure, and my manager told me that Jason was living with his parents in his mid to late 20s in 2008. And with that being the case, he was working at Walmart for a few months. After the day Jason gave me the piece of paper of the episode of Planet Heroes, it was the day he quit Walmart. I then showed my manager the piece of paper that Jason gave me, and it was shown him at the episode of Planet Heroes I saw. After rewatching the episode with my manager, he was stunned by the way the episode contained. I asked if Farley was Jason's last name, Surprisingly, the manager said that was Jason's last name was Farley. Now I was confused by this. If Jason made this episode, then why did he start working at Walmart? As I was asked that myself, my manager said that he was the one that wrote the Planet Heroes episodes, and had to make a long story short. The episode was scrapped due to the Wendigo being shown in the episode. But not only would that be the case, but the episode would traumatize children if they watched on DVD or TV. So was that the reason why Jason left? I asked my manager, who shook his head. Jason left the job as the writer of the episode. It was mainly because people were peer pressuring him to release the episode, so he felt that he was forced to make it. After the episode was made, he left that job, my manager replied. Either way, I have never seen Jason Farley for a long time, and I have never told my son about this episode, nor even showed it to him anyway. At least 10 years later, in 2018, I rewatched the episode again to see if it was still as I remember describing it, and it has. Surprisingly, the episode was there, but the views were now at 102k views. I looked to see if there were any comments about the video, and there were only 2 comments related to the episode. One was, "Cool episode," and another one was, "Nice, I wish I could watch this on TV." Then the other comments weren't really that interesting. There were only 4 comments talking about other things, so I didn't really bother with that. Well, but I still remember seeing this episode 10 years ago, and still have it remembered at the back of my head. And in case if you're wondering, I still haven't told my son about this episode. I still don't know what happened to Jason, as I never got his number or something like that. But with that being said, the episode's still on VO if you want to view it. But I wouldn't show this to any child, unless if you want them traumatized. Then I can't stop you. However, figured out that Superman 87 could be Jason Farley on VO, but that puzzled me as well. Why didn't Jason upload the video to YouTube if he was the writer of the episode? Mainly the reason would be because of copyright or something else, so I decided not to bother with that. But I have no idea who Maxim McKnight is either. Could it be possible if Maxim McKnight was Jason's friend? Well, if that was the case, then it would be possible in any way. If you do happen to watch the episode for yourself, please let me know, and even send screenshots of the episode if you can, as I would like to have this to show it to someone someday, of what I saw that my son never saw.